Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're diving into Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry today to really get a handle on personal finance. And joining me to help break it all down is a financial expert, Olivia Smith.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Lowry starts off by kind of digging into the psychology of money. Olivia, why do you think that is, especially when we're talking about millennials?
Well, I think it's super important, actually. A lot of times our struggles with money aren't just about like math, right? It's deeper than that. It's
Mm,
about our relationship with money. And, Lowry points out that for a lot of millennials, we kind of came of age during some interesting times
yeah.
financially, recessions, student loan debt, you name it. So, that's bound to shape how we think about money.
It's like we inherited this I don't know, like a financial anxiety almost. The book really gets into like how our childhood experiences and, things like that really shape us.
Yeah, totally. Like, think about it. If money was always a source of stress growing up,
Oh yeah,
it's understandable if you kind of avoid dealing with it as an adult.
it's true. Lowry actually calls that money avoidance, which can lead to, well, some not so great habits. But the good news is that she gives us a framework to start changing that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest takeaways for me was the idea of living below your means.
Oh yeah, such a classic piece of advice, but it's, easier said than done.
Right. But it doesn't have to be about deprivation or anything. It's more about being intentional with your spending, making choices that actually align with what you value. What resonated with you about that idea?
I think for me, it was the reminder that you can still enjoy your life and be responsible with your money. Maori actually uses this dating analogy. It's like, are you just swiping right on every fleeting desire,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
or are you actually ready to commit to long-term financial health?
I love that analogy. And, she doesn't just stop at the mindset stuff. He also gets into the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
practical tools like budgeting.
Budgeting, everyone's favorite topic.
Bleh. Right. She talks about a bunch of different methods, but I found it interesting that she highlights zero sum budgeting, especially for freelancers or people with inconsistent income. What do you think about that?
I think when your income is all over the place, it's easy to feel like you're always uh, kind of scrambling, right?
Oh, for sure.
But zero sum forces you to account for every single dollar. It
Yeah.
puts you in control, even when your income isn't super predictable.
Exactly. It's all about taking charge. And, Lowry's also really good about acknowledging the, digital world we live in. She talks about budgeting apps, but she also warns about, not using them blindly. What are your thoughts on budgeting apps?
I think they can be really helpful for tracking your spending, like just getting a clear picture of where your money's actually going.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with Lowry on the potential downsides. Some apps require you to manually update cash transactions,
Oh, yeah.
and that can be a pain. Plus, there's always the cybersecurity aspect, right? Got to be careful about which apps you use and, what information you're sharing.
Right. You don't want to trade convenience for security. Now, beyond managing our money, Lowry also gets into choosing the right financial products, and she really goes after those pesky fees, especially when it comes to checking accounts and credit cards.
Oh, I know. It's crazy how much money people waste on fees they could totally avoid. Lowry's a big fan of no-fee checking accounts, especially the ones from online banks.
Yeah, those can be a game changer. And for credit cards, she really breaks down the key things to look for. No annual fee, easy online payments, clear terms and conditions.
Yes.
It's all about understanding what you're signing up for, not just chasing those flashy rewards.
Speaking of rewards, she gets into the different reward structures too, right? Like tiered rewards versus flat rate cashback, sign-on bonuses.
Mm,
It can be kind of overwhelming.
totally. There are so many options, but I think her main point is to choose a card that actually fits your spending habits, not just the one with the biggest, like, initial bonus or whatever.
Right. Right. Make it work for you. Now, Lowry also tackles a topic that can be really confusing: credit scores and reports. Why do you think she spends a whole chapter on this?
Oh, because it's so important. It's like your financial GPA, you know?
It impacts pretty much everything.
Exactly. Getting approved for loans, the interest rates you pay, even sometimes renting an apartment. And Lowry does a great job of like busting some common myths around credit scores.
Oh,
Like that you should never, ever close your oldest credit card.
oh yeah, I've heard that one.
Sometimes it actually makes sense to close a card, especially if it has high fees or something, even if it temporarily dings your score.
Makes sense.
She also shares her own experience with having a thin file,
Yeah.
when you don't have much credit history,
Right.
which can make it harder to get loans,
Yeah.
even if you're super responsible.
That's a good reminder that you actually have to, like, actively build your credit, right?
Sure. Yes. And she gives really practical advice on how to address any errors on your credit report. Because, mistakes happen. It's important to know your rights and how to, advocate for yourself if something's wrong.
Absolutely. And Lowry doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either,
Hmm.
like debt. She has strategies for dealing with both consumer debt and student loans.
Yeah, she doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
Right.
She really emphasizes facing those numbers head on,
Yeah.
understanding exactly how much you owe and what those interest rates are. No burying your head in the sand.
Definitely not. So how does she suggest tackling that mountain of debt?
Well, she talks about two popular methods, the debt avalanche and the debt snowball. Have you heard of those?
I have. I'm always curious to hear people's take on them.
Yeah, so the avalanche method is all about hitting the debt with the highest interest rate first.
Right. Trying to, like, minimize the overall amount you pay, right?
Exactly. While the snowball method is about paying off the smallest debt first, no matter the interest rate,
Oh.
which can give you a nice little psychological boost.
I can see that. Feeling like you're making progress.
Right. And Lowry's great because she acknowledges that both methods have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
The best one really depends on your personality and, your specific situation. What do you think about those methods?
I think it's really about finding what motivates you. Like you said, some people need those quick wins
Yeah,
to keep them going, while others are all about, being super strategic and minimizing those interest payments.
totally. Now, Lowry also dives into the unique challenges of student loans.
True.
Those can be a real beast to deal with.
For sure, especially when you're looking at a big balance.
Right. She emphasizes understanding the different types of loans,
Oh, yeah.
how the interest works, and all the different repayment options you might have.
There are so many options.
There are, like income-driven repayment plans for federal loans. And she even cautions against paying third-party companies to, help you manage your loans.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
There are actually free resources out there.
That's so important to know.
It is. She really drives home the point that knowledge is power when it comes to debt. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even while you're tackling debt, she's a big advocate for saving.
Wait, really? That seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, shouldn't you focus on getting out of debt first?
Right. It seems that way. But Lowry makes a strong case for paying yourself first.
Okay, what does that even mean?
Basically, it means automatically putting a portion of your income into savings before you have a chance to spend it.
Oh, interesting.
It's like building that financial discipline, and creating a safety net for yourself.
I see. So even if you're still paying off debt, it's a good idea to have, like, an emergency fund.
Exactly. That emergency fund can actually prevent you from going further into debt if, unexpected expenses pop up.
That's true.
How much do you think is a good starting point for an emergency fund?
Lowry suggests at least $1,000 to start, but ideally enough to cover, like, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I know, it seems like a lot.
It does.
But even if you start small and just stay consistent, it adds up over time.
Absolutely. And then she takes us into the world of investing, which I know can feel kind of intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
But she does a great job of breaking down the different options, like, index funds,
Mhm.
ETFs, target date funds, IRAs, 401k. What stood out to you from that section?
Honestly, I loved how she debunked some of the common misconceptions about investing. Like, you don't have to be some Wall Street whiz to get started.
Right.
She really emphasizes the power of long-term strategies and, like, staying the course.
Yeah.
Even when the market gets all crazy.
Which it does.
It does. She's a big proponent of index funds. The ones that track a specific market index.
Yes. Like the S&P 500.
Exactly.
She's all about that. She also talks about diversification,
Yeah.
spreading your money around.
Right.
And understanding your risk tolerance. Because investing isn't one size fits all.
Definitely not.
It's about finding what works for you and your goals. And she doesn't just talk about, saving for retirement.
Right.
She also gets into some of the more specific challenges millennials face, like negotiating salaries.
Oh, man.
That's a tough one. It can be. But she actually shares a personal story about her own experience negotiating her first salary.
Really?
Yeah. And she points out how even a small bump in your starting salary can, compound over time.
Wow.
and lead to significant gains throughout your career.
That's a good point.
So it's a good reminder to, not underestimate your worth and be prepared to advocate for yourself.
It's true. We should all be doing that.
We should. And she gives actual steps to prepare for a negotiation,
Like what?
like researching industry standards,
Yeah.
quantifying your accomplishments,
Okay.
practicing your pitch. It's all about knowing your value and presenting your case with confidence. And she also tackles a topic that can be kind of emotionally charged, which is living at home with your parents.
Ooh, yeah.
A lot of millennials face that decision, especially with how expensive housing is.
It's true.
And it's not just about the money, right?
No.
There are so many emotional factors to consider.
Totally.
It can be a great way to save,
Yeah.
but it can also, strain relationships
For sure.
and make it hard to feel independent. Larry's advice is to be super intentional about it.
Okay, so what does that look like?
If you're living at home, set a budget.
Mm-hmm.
Contribute to household expenses. Even consider paying rent to your parents.
That makes sense.
It shows respect,
Yeah.
Helps maintain a healthy dynamic.
Yeah, that's important.
And she even has this really cool idea called the parental 401k.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
Basically, the parents charge their adult kids rent,
Uh-huh.
but then they secretly save that money to give back to them as a nest egg when they move out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. It's a creative way to encourage saving and give their kids a little financial boost.
I love that.
And speaking of boosting your finances, we got to talk about negotiating your salary.
Oh, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
We did. And Lowry is all about self-advocacy here. She points out that not negotiating your first salary can actually cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your career.
No way.
Yeah. So she provides a step-by-step guide for how to prepare.
Like what?
Well, you gotta research industry standards,
Mm-hmm.
quantify those accomplishments, practice your pitch.
You got to practice.
Yes. And she even shares some, power moves for the negotiation itself.
Oh, tell me more.
Like starting with a higher number than you're willing to accept, to give yourself some room to negotiate. It's about being strategic and, not undervaluing yourself.
That's such good advice.
Right? And finally, we got to talk about investing. Lowry does an amazing job of demystifying it.
Yeah, investing can seem scary.
It can, but you don't have to be a financial expert to get started. She really emphasizes the power of compound interest.
Oh, yeah, that's like the magic of investing, right?
It is. The earlier you start, the more time your money has to grow.
It's wild.
And she introduces all sorts of different investment options.
Right, what?
Index funds, ETFs, target date funds, IRAs, 401ks.
Got it.
She even breaks down some of the common myths around investing too.
Like what?
Well, you don't need a ton of money to start, for one thing, and you don't have to be constantly checking the market to be successful.
Yeah.
She actually advocates for a long-term passive approach,
Okay.
especially for beginners.
Makes sense.
Right. She's a big fan of index funds,
Oh, yeah.
which track a specific market index
Mhm.
and tend to be low cost.
Nice.
She also stresses diversification, spreading your money across different asset classes
Right.
to reduce risk.
Smart.
And it's key to know your risk tolerance.
Uh-huh.
Investing isn't one size fits all.
No, it's not.
You got to find what aligns with your comfort level
Yeah,
and your goals.
totally.
But, Lowry doesn't just leave us to figure it all out on our own.
Right.
She talks about the value of getting professional guidance, especially during big life changes.
Oh, okay.
And that's where financial planners come in. Lowry helps us understand the different types of advisors out there, and she emphasizes choosing a fee-only advisor who's legally obligated to act in your best interest.
That's important.
It is. She even suggests that sometimes a one-time consultation is all you need, Just to address a specific concern or get you pointed in the right direction. We've covered so much ground already, and there's still more to unpack. What are your initial thoughts on Lowry's approach so far? Anything surprise you?
I think what strikes me is how she blends the psychological and the practical. She's not just giving us a to-do list, She's helping us understand why we make the financial choices we do.
Yes.
It's really empowering.
It is.
But we're just getting
I
started.
know, right?
Yeah. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring even more advice from Broke Millennial, including her take on homeownership.
Ooh.
So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time, we really started digging into Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry. Got into, the psychology of money and all that.
It was fascinating.
It was. Now, let's tackle a topic that can be kind of loaded.
Okay.
Homeownership,
Oh, yeah, the big one.
the American dream and all. But, Lowry doesn't just present it as this automatic thing you have to do.
Right.
She actually wants readers to really think about if it's even the right move for them.
I like that.
She actually almost bought a place in Nashville, went through the whole process, crunched the numbers.
Oh, wow.
But then she realized she hadn't really factored in all the costs.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, things like property taxes, insurance, even just basic maintenance.
Right.
That stuff can add up
It's
fast.
so easy to overlook those things when you're, caught up in the excitement of buying a house.
Totally. It's like she's saying, don't just buy into the hype.
Yeah.
She has this, super detailed checklist of things to think about before you even start looking.
Oh, I love a good checklist.
Right. Credit score, down payment, your emergency fund, your monthly budget.
She's thorough.
Oh, yeah, she covers it all. And she's really clear that homeownership isn't always the best financial move either.
Okay, so when does it not make sense?
Well, if you're not planning to stay in one place for a while,
Right.
or if you're not really comfortable with the responsibility of, repairs and all that.
Yeah, being a homeowner is a lot of work.
It is. Renting might actually be the smarter option in those cases.
It's about knowing yourself and your situation, I guess.
Exactly. And she even talks about the emotional side of homeownership, too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, buying a home is a huge commitment,
It is.
and it can tie you down in ways you might not expect. It's not just about signing a mortgage. It's about, being ready for the lifestyle changes that come with it.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another kind of commitment.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Ah, yes.
Specifically, how to handle finances with a partner.
This is where things can get really tricky.
Oh, they can. And it's no secret that money is a major source of conflict for couples.
Yeah, sadly.
Lowry's big advice here is to have open and honest conversations about it early on.
So, before you're even thinking about marriage or anything.
Ideally, yes. Talk about your financial goals,
Mhm.
your values around money, how you each approach spending, even any debt you're bringing into the relationship.
Transparency is key, it sounds like.
It really is. It's about building that trust and understanding from the beginning. She also gives some, practical tips.
Oh, good.
Like, how to manage shared expenses,
Mhm.
setting up joint accounts, even having those conversations about, prenuptial agreements if that's relevant.
Yeah.
And she's not afraid to talk about the tough stuff.
Like what?
Financial infidelity,
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one.
which can be just as damaging to a relationship as any other form of betrayal,
It's true. It's about trust.
It is. It's about that open communication and building that financial trust.
It makes sense.
Now, let's circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Oh.
Living at home with your parents. Lowry gets into this with a lot of empathy because she knows it's a complex decision for a lot of millennials.
It really is. It's not just about the money. There are all those emotional factors to weigh,
Exactly. It can be a great way to save, obviously.
especially these days.
Right, especially with how high rents are. But it can also strain relationships and, make it hard to feel like you're really independent.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
Yeah.
But she suggests being really intentional about it.
Okay. What does that look like?
Well, if you are living at home, set a budget, contribute to household expenses, even pay rent to your parents.
Oh, interesting.
It shows respect and helps keep things, healthy and balanced.
Like that.
And she even has this cool idea called the parental 401k. Have you heard of this?
No, tell me.
So basically, parents charge their adult kids rent, but then they secretly save that money and give it back to them later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like a nest egg for when they move out.
That sounds so smart.
Right. It's a way to encourage saving and give their kids a financial boost down the line.
Love it.
Wow.
Now, speaking of boosting your finances, we got to talk about negotiating your salary.
Yes. This is where Lowry is all about advocating for yourself.
It's important.
It is. And she points out that, not negotiating that first salary can actually cost you a lot of money over your career.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. It's crazy how much it can add up.
It really is. So she breaks down how to prepare for a negotiation step by step.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes.
First, you got to do your research.
Research what?
Industry standards, figure out what other people in similar roles are making.
Makes sense.
Then you got to quantify your accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
Put those achievements into concrete terms.
Got it.
And then practice your pitch.
Practice makes perfect.
It does. You
Yeah.
want to be able to articulate your value with confidence.
Absolute.
And she even has some, tactical advice for the negotiation itself.
Oh, cool. Like what?
One thing is Start with a higher number than you're actually willing to accept.
Oh, okay.
That way, you have some room to negotiate.
Smart.
Right.
Right.
It's about being strategic, not undervaluing your skills and experience.
We love a good power move.
We do. All right, now let's move on to another topic that can be a little daunting, investing.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But Lowry does a great job of demystifying it, really.
Yeah, so.
She makes it clear that, you don't need to be a financial expert to get started.
Okay, that's reassuring.
And she really emphasizes the power of compound interest.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. The earlier you start, the more time your money has to, grow exponentially.
It's amazing.
It is. She introduces a bunch of different investment options, too.
Hmm.
Index funds, ETFs, target date funds, IRAs, 401k. She covers the whole spectrum.
That's hopeful.
And she debunks some common misconceptions as well.
Oh, like what?
Well, for one thing, you don't need a ton of money to start investing.
That's good to know.
And you don't have to be, constantly checking the market and freaking out.
Oh, that's a relief.
She's a big fan of a long-term passive investing approach,
Yeah.
especially for people who are just starting out.
Makes sense.
She's big on index funds, which, like we said, track those specific market indexes.
Right.
And tend to be low cost.
I like that.
She also emphasizes diversifying your investments, spreading your money across different asset classes.
You reduce risk.
Exactly. And understanding your risk tolerance is key. Investing isn't a one-size-fits-all thing.
No, for sure.
You got to find what aligns with your comfort level and your goals.
Absolutely.
But, Lowry doesn't just throw all this info at us and say, good luck. She talks about the value of getting professional guidance when you need it.
Okay. Like, when would that be a good idea?
Well, during big life transitions, for example, like buying a house or starting a family, a financial planner can help you create a plan and, navigate those big decisions.
That makes sense.
And Lowry emphasizes finding the right financial planner. She really breaks down the different types of advisors out there.
I remember that from part 1.
And she's a big advocate for fee-only advisors who are legally obligated to act in your best interest.
That's important.
It is. And sometimes, she says, even just a one-time consultation is enough.
Okay.
Just to address a specific concern or get you on the right track. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are your biggest takeaways so far from Broke Millennial? What's resonating with you?
Honestly, what's really sticking with me is how Lowry blends that practical advice with a real understanding of the emotional side of money.
Yes.
Like, she acknowledges those psychological barriers we often face.
Right.
It's refreshing. It's not just about numbers and spreadsheets.
Exactly. She gives us permission to be human, to make mistakes and, learn as we go.
Yeah. And she gives us the tools and knowledge to become more confident with our finances. I appreciate that.
Me too. And we've got one more part of this deep dive to go.
I know. I'm excited.
It's all about continuing that financial education, finding what works for you.
Awesome.
So stick with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring Erin Lowry's Broke Millennial, and I feel like we've covered so much ground already, from the basics of budgeting to the complexities of buying a house, even navigating finances with a partner. But now I think it's time to talk about what's next. How do we keep this financial learning going?
I think that's a great point. And Lowry actually does a fantastic job of this, I think. She doesn't just drop all this advice on us and then, disappear. She actually provides this roadmap for continuing your financial education.
I like that. Like, she's holding our hand through this process.
Totally. She recommends checking out reputable websites and blogs, listening to informative podcasts, even tapping into online communities.
Oh, yeah, like the personal finance subreddit. That's a good one.
It is. There's a whole community out there, people who
Yeah.
are on this journey with you.
It's nice to know you're not alone in this.
Exactly. And, personal finance, it's not like you just learn it once and you're done.
Right.
It's a lifelong thing. Your needs change, as you go through different life stages.
That's true.
And Lowry really emphasizes that it's about finding what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. What clicks for one person might not for another, and that's totally fine.
Right. We're all different.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about experimenting, finding tools and strategies that you can stick with, and then adjusting as you go.
I like that. It's all about flexibility, finding what fits your life.
Exactly. And she also reminds us that, it's okay to ask for help. We talked about financial planners earlier, but there are tons of free resources out there too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like Workshops, online courses, you can even just talk to, friends or family members who are good with money.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, taking ownership of your financial well-being.
I love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Broke Millennial, I'm curious, what's your biggest takeaway?
That's a good question. I think for me, what really stands out is that personal finance is, well, personal.
Yeah.
It's about aligning your choices with your values, your goals. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses or following some arbitrary rule book.
So well said.
It's about creating a financial life that actually supports the life you want to live.
I love that. And for me, I think it's that emphasis on mindset. Lowry really drives home that point that our beliefs and attitudes about money can either, help us or hold us back.
Yes, 100%.
So I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to that,
Yeah.
trying to challenge any negative thoughts that might be creeping in.
That's a great goal. I think we can all benefit from that.
Well, on that note, we hope this deep dive into Broke Millennial has left you feeling empowered,
Yes.
ready to take control of your finances and build that solid foundation.
And create a future you can feel good about.
Absolutely. Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Start small, take it one step at a time, and celebrate your wins along the way.
Yes. And never stop learning.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll be back soon with another episode exploring a new topic.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.